Tonight, Trump's tariffs send the markets reeling again. The staggering trillions of dollars in losses and what it means for you. Tonight, China retaliating with a 34% tariff on all U.S. products. And President Trump holding firm, insisting China played it wrong and his policies will never change. What does it all mean for electronics we rely on? We break down just how much more you could have to pay. Nintendo also announcing its much anticipated Switch 2 will now be delayed. Plus,
I miss you so much. And I'm doing the best to fight for you and our children.
The wife of a Maryland man deported in error to El Salvador demands he be returned immediately. What a judge ordered late today. SoCal Strong, 3 months later, the night of hope and inspiration, including a show-stopping performance by Christina Aguilera.
Welcome home from 2. We have confirmation of splashdown of the Dragon spacecraft.
The history-making splashdown back on Earth, 4 space tourists completing a never-before-attempted mission. What we could all learn as a result of this unprecedented trip. And nearly a decade after Grace VanderWaal burst onto the scene, she joins us in studio with all the details on her brand new and deeply personal project.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie Ramos in for Linsey Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. We begin with the far-reaching impact of President Trump's sweeping new tariffs. China is responding to the president's move, adding a 34% tariff on all U.S. goods sold in China. That will hit American farmers especially hard. China is the 3rd largest market for U.S. agricultural exports. Soybean farmers could see a $5.9 billion loss in revenue. Tech companies are also reeling. Nintendo is delaying pre-orders of its new Switch 2 console to assess the potential impact of tariffs. And warnings tonight that prices for crucial medical equipment are likely to go up. Everything from hearing aids to pacemakers and insulin pumps will be hit by the tariffs. For a second day in a row of steep losses for the stock market, some $5 trillion wiped out in just 48 hours. We have a state-by-state breakdown of where the tariffs may hit the hardest. But first, let's get right to Whit Johnson on Wall Street.
Tonight, the stock market in free fall after President Trump's sweeping tariffs. Today, the Dow losing more than 2,000 points in a single day. Only the 4th time in history this has happened. The other 3 times, also all under President Trump during the pandemic. Tonight, millions of Americans are worried about rising prices and their shrinking 401ks. This snapshot of the Dow since President Trump's inauguration in January, a racing gain since he took office. The Dow down more than 14% since its record high, putting it into correction territory. And this is the tech-heavy NASDAQ during that same time, now officially in bear market territory, meaning it's lost more than 20% since its recent high. And this is the S&P 500 during the new administration, losing $5 trillion in just the past 2 days. Democratic leaders criticizing Trump for golfing today in Florida as markets plunged. Late today, President Trump standing firm, saying only the weak will fail. And tonight, China now firing back, saying they will now slap a 34% retaliatory tariff on U.S. goods coming into China. China banning 11 American companies and halting chicken imports from 5 of the largest agricultural exporters in the U.S. China is the 3rd largest importer for U.S. agricultural products. American farmers are now bracing. Louise and Vance Emke have been farming in western Kansas for over 50 years, worried not only for themselves, but for the entire farming community.
It isn't just us, it's the people who sell the equipment. They aren't making equipment sales. It's the fertilizer people. You're buying less fertilizer. Who knows, you may have to lay somebody off and stretch whatever you have further.
And it's not just farming, it's electronics. Japanese gaming giant Nintendo now delaying the pre-orders of its highly anticipated Switch 2 console to assess the potential impact of tariffs and evolving market conditions. After President Trump said, quote, "I think it's going very well," tonight Secretary of State Marco Rubio describing the tanking global markets this way.
I don't think it's fair to say economies are crashing. Markets are crashing because markets are based on the stock value of companies who today are embedded in modes of production that are bad for the United States.
The White House concedes it could take up to 2 years for some manufacturing to come back to the U.S. Economists say it could take far longer and cost billions. Not to mention the additional cost of labor paying workers in America when workers overseas make far less. James Evans from Baltimore manufactures car parts here in the U.S. and is hopeful this gamble works.
I think in 3-4 years, it should set us up and other people that are manufacturing here in America for success.
In the meantime, Americans are set to pay more at the grocery store for electronics and for cars. The average family of 4, analysts say, could pay $7,000 more in higher prices a year.
Should Americans expect things to get worse before they get better?
I think we're in for a bumpy ride. And again, it could get worse from here, depending on what we see from the rest of the world and what we see further from businesses and consumers as they respond to this.
For an idea of just how costly these tariffs could be, take a look at these numbers. This is how much more importers in each state could pay under the Trump tariffs compared to what they spent last year. Take a look at that. Unsurprisingly, California could be hit the hardest. The state's businesses potentially paying over $170 billion more than last year. Texas ranks second with an estimated $82 billion increase. Altogether, the American importers could pay over $712 billion more in import taxes this year. We know that the prices for things like groceries and alcohol are going up in the face of President Trump's tariffs, and it will also drive up the cost of gadgets like smartphones and laptops. It's even impacting gaming consoles. In an unprecedented move, Nintendo says it is pushing pre-orders of its highly anticipated Switch 2 in the U.S. in response to the tariffs. To help us understand what happens next is Victoria Song. She's a senior reporter with The Verge, focusing on wearables, health tech, and more. Victoria, thank you so much for joining us. Let's talk about this. Why will tariffs impact what we pay for some of our most used technology?
Yeah, so, modern gadgets, they're not all made 100% in the US. Like the components, they're sourced from overseas, oftentimes China, and they're also assembled overseas in places like China, Vietnam, Malaysia, Cambodia. So when they become imported into the US for sale to US customers, they're subject to tariffs. So not only are the components being tariffed, the final product is being tariffed, and that just compounds the cost and raises the cost for the companies that make them.
And Victoria, it's not just gadgets, right? It's also medical devices like over-the-counter hearing aids.
Yeah. So while pharmaceuticals were exempt from tariffs, medical devices were not. So, I talked to basically an online retailer for over-the-counter hearing aids, and what they told me was that, the profit margins on those devices are not that wide. So any kind of increase to the base manufacturing cost, that's going to have a lasting impact in terms of what the consumer pays.
And when do you think we'll start to see this price hike? How quickly will we see those prices rise?
Ahead of the tariffs, some manufacturers and companies, they basically stockpiled their inventory. Based on the experts I spoke to, I think you can start to expect seeing that price go up sometime midsummer or back to school season, the fall, certainly. Of course, that's if nothing changes in between now and then.
And I know a lot of folks are wondering, why pass the cost along to consumers? Why don't companies just absorb some of that cost themselves?
Well, they will absorb some of that. It depends on the profit margin. But, if a company absorbs all of that, these are pretty significant tariff increases. Like it's 54% for products shipped from China, right? So the investors in these companies, they're not going to be too happy if the product profit margin decreases. So, they're going to lose some capital investment that way. And it's just a matter of fact that they're going to pass that along down to the consumer. It's not great, but, companies want to keep their investors happy.
Right. They need to make some profit in the end. So could tariffs encourage maybe tech companies to bring manufacturing back to the U.S.? Is that something that we might see in the future?
It's really unlikely because even with the tariffs, it's so much cheaper for them to still manufacture overseas. And, it's not a thing that could happen overnight, even if they wanted to bring things back. I'm sure some companies will investigate whether that makes sense for them. But the fact of the matter is we do not have the capacity in the US anymore to actually make these products at home. Not only do you have to source the components still from outside of the US, it's still going to be subject to tariffs. Factories aren't built overnight. Workers who are skilled in building these products, they're also not going to be trained overnight.
What do you think? What can people do now to avoid paying these higher prices ahead?
So one thing that I've been saying is if you have a piece of aging tech that you know that you need to replace, that repairs aren't really going to extend the life, you should start looking now while inventory is, there's still inventory for you to get to. Maybe don't hold off on buying that laptop for the back to school season, right? But in other cases, if you have a new gadget, you might want to buy a case or a cover to make sure it lasts a long time.
I know, it's you don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but you've got a couple of good tech tips there.
Yeah.
So we can use that for now. Victoria Song with The Verge. Thank you so much, Victoria.
Thanks for having me.
Now to the severe weather threat, the danger rising tonight for millions as storms track across the country. There are tornado watches in 9 states and early reports of twisters on the ground. Tornadoes and extreme flooding has already left at least 8 people dead across the central U.S. This is day 3 of what forecasters are calling a once-in-a-generation weather event, and it could continue right through the weekend. Morgan Norwood reports from the storm zone.
Tonight, that massive, relentless storm system that spawned multiple monster tornadoes, threatening millions from Kentucky to Texas.
I need you to take cover immediately. There is a tornado on the ground, according to the police department in Canton.
More than 500 severe storm reports in the past 48 hours, including 2 EF3 tornadoes, this one slamming Lake City, Arkansas, and another that tore the heart out of Selmer, Tennessee. In Frankfort, Kentucky, authorities say a 9-year-old boy was swept away by floodwaters while walking to his bus stop this morning.
At approximately 8:45 this morning, emergency crews recovered the missing juvenile who is confirmed deceased.
The house is right here.
In Hopkinsville, Kentucky, neighborhoods flooded as far as the eye can see. Overnight, tornado-warned storms threatening the Nashville suburbs. Torrential rain swamping streets. The Nashville Fire Department out in boats rescuing drivers.
That storm system causing so much destruction. Our thanks to Morgan. Let's get right to meteorologist Lee Goldberg of our New York station WABC. And Lee, another dangerous night ahead?
And Stephanie, this could be worse than last night. We've already had confirmation of multiple tornadoes along the ground in northeast Texas, at least one of which considerable, large and destructive. Tornado watches go all the way from Texas up to southern Illinois through the first part of the night. And you just have relentless rounds of rain overnight along that front, which is just stuck in cement for one more day. That goes from Texas all the way into the Ohio Valley. So the severe threat tonight, and again, worse than last night for some large long track tornadoes, Alexandria, Little Rock, Memphis, all the way just south of Nashville. And then that severe weather will shift into the south and the Gulf Coast from Atlanta to Mobile by the end of the weekend. But before that, and we have the last day tomorrow, this high-risk flood threat, Little Rock to Paducah, we've already seen 5 inches of rain there. We could add another 5 to 10 inches of rain overnight into tomorrow. Rivers will be rising. The flooding will continue into next week, even after this ends on Sunday. Stephanie?
Lee Goldberg for us tonight. Thank you so much, Lee.
Sure.
British authorities have charged comedian and actor Russell Brand with a number of sexual offenses, including rape, allegedly involving 4 women more than 20 years ago. Brand offered a forceful defense, saying he was a lot of things back then, but, quote, "What I never was a rapist." Chief international correspondent James Longman reports from London.
Tonight, British comedian and actor Russell Brand has taken to social media to deny charges that he sexually assaulted multiple women over 6 years.
I was a drug addict, a sex addict, and an imbecile, but what I never was a rapist. I've never engaged in non-consensual activity. I pray that you can see that by looking in my eyes.
The London Metropolitan Police say the charges involve 4 separate women in incidents they say occurred from 1999 to 2005. One woman alleges Brand raped her. Authorities say the charges follow an 18-month police investigation after British media published a documentary back in September 2023 accusing Brand of abusing and assaulting women. Brand rose to fame as a British radio host and comedian back in the early 2000s, breaking into the Hollywood scene with movies like Forgetting Sarah Marshall. He was briefly married to singer Katy Perry. But in recent years, Brand has found a new fan base, attracting a massive audience with his podcasts and YouTube videos on politics and conspiracy theories.
Stephanie, authorities are appealing to the public for information about these cases. Meanwhile, Russell Brand says he is looking forward to defending himself in court. Stephanie?
Thank you very much, James. Back here in the U.S. tonight, a federal judge is now giving the Trump administration until Monday night to return an immigrant husband and father mistakenly deported to a notorious prison in El Salvador. The judge saying it was illegal to do so. Here's Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas.
Tonight, a federal judge giving the Trump administration until Monday to bring back this man to the United States from the high-security prison in El Salvador, where he was deported by mistake. Judge Paula Zittis saying deporting Kilmar Abrego Garcia, an undocumented immigrant, was, quote, an illegal act.
Kilmar, if you can hear me, I miss you so much.
Abrego Garcia's wife, Jennifer, who is an American citizen, says her husband is the man in these images from that prison. The Department of Homeland Security acknowledges he was mistakenly put on a plane to El Salvador with more than 200 men the administration claims are violent gang members because of an administrative error.
It was an administrative error. The administration maintains the position that this individual who was deported to El Salvador and will not be returning to our country was a member of the brutal and vicious MS-13 gang.
But today, Judge Zittis saying in a court of law, when someone is accused of membership in such a violent and predatory organization, it comes in the form of an indictment, complaint, criminal proceeding, a robust process so we can address the facts. I haven't yet heard that from the government.
Pierre Thomas for us in Washington. Thank you, Pierre. President Trump today threw TikTok another 75-day lifeline, just hours before the deadline for it to be sold to a non-Chinese company or be banned in the U.S. Congress ordered the sale over national security concerns. Selena Wang is with us now from Washington. Selena, tell us more about this lifeline.
Hey, Stephanie, so this extends the deadline for TikTok to be banned or sold. The original deadline was tomorrow, but now it's been extended by 75 days. But we're learning that behind the scenes, the Trump administration was actually close to reaching a deal with a group of investors for TikTok to be sold off. But that all fell apart because of this growing trade war between the U.S. and China. Trump, in fact, acknowledged in a post today that Beijing is unhappy with these tariffs. We're hearing that ByteDance called the Trump administration saying that this deal was not going to be reached until the Trump administration would be able to negotiate with China on those tariffs. Now, Trump had said he was going to impose a whopping total of 54% tariffs on China. The 20% tariffs he had imposed before, and then these new reciprocal tariffs that are expected to go into effect next week of 34%. Now, President Trump has said that tariffs can be a powerful negotiating tool, and he said in the past several times that he believes tariffs could be used as leverage to get Beijing to sign off on a deal for TikTok. So right now, this whole deal is in limbo as it has become a hostage, really, to these growing U.S.-China tensions.
And Selena, can you remind us the national security concerns over TikTok, and how does that factor into the deal?
Yeah, so the national security concerns really stem from, first of all, the fact that such an influential social media app in the United States is owned by an adversary. There are concerns that the data could be used. There are privacy concerns here. There's also concerns that the algorithm could be manipulated and push propaganda to U.S. consumers. Now, at the core here of what makes TikTok so addictive is that algorithm, but it is also the source of those national security concerns. So sources close to the deal have told me that one of the sticking points in terms of getting an agreement on the deal is how to structure it so that the algorithm is still being used by this future new company that would be owned by U.S. investors, but also complies with this law from Congress. And China, another sticking point here, had recently passed a law that would appear to ban the sale or export of technologies like TikTok's algorithm. So a lot of different factors at play here and a lot of stakeholders that need to sign off to keep TikTok alive in this country.
And TikTok goes on to live another day, 75 days to be exact. We'll see what happens when that deadline approaches. Selena Wang for us in Washington. Thanks, Selena.
Thanks so much.
In other news coming out of Washington, President Trump fired 2 more top national security officials days after meeting with far-right activist Laura Loomer. Sources tell ABC News Loomer urged President Trump on Wednesday to fire certain individuals, citing evidence of disloyalties. The latest individuals to be terminated include National Security Agency Director General Timothy Hall and his deputy. Others include National Security Council and State Department officials. Loomer confirmed her involvement in a post on X, thanking President Trump for being, quote, receptive to the vetting materials provided to him and firing what she called Biden holdovers. In a complete reversal, President Trump says he now opposes proxy voting for members of Congress that are parents of newborns. Just yesterday, President Trump announced his support for the measure, saying, I don't know why it's controversial. House Speaker Mike Johnson has expressed strong opposition to it, claiming Democrats have abused proxy voting in the past. The House Speaker took to X, formerly known as Twitter, to say he had been in communication with the president and thanked him for his support and understanding of the complexities of governing a razor-thin House majority. Now to the troubling murder of a beloved Catholic priest in Northeast Kansas, found shot multiple times outside the church rectory. Hours later, a suspect was taken into custody. Police say the attack was premeditated, but they did not reveal a motive. Trevor Alt reports.
Tonight, investigators searching for a motive after the shocking murder of a beloved Kansas priest gunned down in cold blood.
There simply are no words. Our hearts are just broken.
Police finding 57-year-old Father Arul Karasala with multiple gunshot wounds outside the residence of this church in Seneca, a bullet hole piercing the glass of the rectory. Parish director telling the AP an older man walked up to the priest and shot him 3 times. Authorities arresting 66-year-old Gary Hermesh, today taken into court shackled in a wheelchair, charged with first-degree murder. Officials say they believe the killing was premeditated, but have not said why. Records show the suspect grew up in that tiny Kansas town, but had since moved hundreds of miles away.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son.
Grieving parishioners gathering Thursday to pray hours after the killing. Terry Nordis heartbroken.
He was a wonderful person. He was very personable, and he did a great job.
Such a sad story. Our thanks to Trevor. Now to a tragedy on the professional bull rider circuit. 24-year-old Dylan Grant thrown off, then stepped on by a bull during a Texas youth fair event. A high school and state champion bull rider, he had just turned pro last year. Here's ABC's Mireya Villarreal.
Tonight, a Texas bull riding event turning deadly for a young professional rider. 24-year-old Dylan Grant from Wyoming suffering fatal injuries after his father says the bull bucked him off and onto the ground.
He got his neck stepped on. He ran out of the arena and straight to the ambulance with these injuries. But Dylan was double tough.
Dylan was medevac to a Houston area hospital where he died.
What happened to Dylan last night is very, 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 very rare. It was a freak accident.
What's your name?
I'm Dylan Grant.
Dylan Grant, seen here at a Colorado rodeo, rose from high school state champion to win the Mountain State title and then worked his way into the dangerous world of professional bull riding.
How about a big ride by Dylan Grant?
Can you put into words what this loss means to your family?
No, and you're just going to pull a lot of tears and heartache. He was just built with kindness.
A federal judge has once again accused the Trump administration of skirting direct court orders. The judge said the administration had covertly paused millions of dollars in FEMA funding, violating a court order blocking the unilateral funding freeze. Today, the judge ordered the administration to immediately cease their efforts to impede the disbursement of federal funds to hundreds of grants. The CDC has confirmed at least 607 cases of measles in 21 states. That number is certainly growing. Health officials reported 124 new cases in just the last week, with outbreaks in Kansas, New Mexico, Ohio, and Texas. Texas is now reporting 481 cases. The CDC says 97% of measles patients are either unvaccinated or their vaccination status is unknown. Coming up, ICE releases a detainee held for weeks so he can try and save his brother's life. We'll tell you how. But first, wildfire survivors and first responders come together in Los Angeles for a night of hope and healing and music.
Happy family, seeing your children laughing, smiling.
As long as the children are happy, we can do anything.
A night at the orchestra underneath the Los Angeles sky to escape reality of only for an hour. That's what happened this week as the LA Philharmonic, along with world-renowned conductor Gustavo Dudamel and Christina Aguilera, united for a performance dedicated to the communities destroyed by the wildfires earlier this year. Our Melissa Adan was there for it all.
It was a night of hope and healing. The LA Philharmonic honoring first responders and residents impacted by the deadly January wildfires in Altadena and Pacific Palisades. The Los Angeles wildfires killed at least 30 people and destroyed more than 18,000 structures, including homes and businesses. Among those who lost their home, the Yu family. Just 3 months ago, Qian Yu, a Pasadena firefighter, was battling the wildfire as his own home was burning down.
We were having dinner and the lights went out and you could see the glow from the Eden fire. We got the evacuation notice and we gathered some stuff, and then my wife took the boys and they left. And I ran up and down the street before I went into work to knock on some doors and evacuate our neighbors.
After helping to evacuate his family and neighbors, Chin, a fire engineer, promptly went to work the front lines to contain the devastating Eaton fire. What the Yu family would return to was rubble.
It must be crushing for someone, you know, who helped save homes, you helped save people, but you still were a victim yourself.
Yeah, it's tough, but hopefully I did more good that night than, you know.
You absolutely did.
Now, Chin focusing on rebuilding his home. According to the EPA, they have completed phase 1 removal of household hazardous materials from impacted properties. The work is now on phase 2, debris removal. Just as we met with Chin at his home, his property was being cleared, giving way for what's next.
Removing all the phase 2 debris. It's sad, but it's a glimpse of hope and happiness that we're that much closer to rebuilding, hopefully.
Yu and his family recognized at the We Love LA concert hosted at the Hollywood Bowl, with programming by the LA Philharmonic featuring Altadena and Pacific Palisades performers alongside 7-time Grammy-winning superstar Christina Aguilera. Maestro Gustavo Dudamel inviting Aguilera for an uplifting and moving musical evening, donating their time and talents for the We Love LA concert with the goal to empower families through love of music.
More than entertainment, music heals.
How much do you hope that you can inspire and give hope?
I think in difficult times you need these spaces, and I hope this can give them happiness and also to celebrate life. Although we have crossed difficult times, we are here and we have the chance to get together and to create an atmosphere of optimism.
Los Angeles near and dear to Dudamel's heart, who has been leading the LA Philharmonic since 2009.
I'm like an Angelino, and these last 20 years of being here, it is unique and very special, and it will be always here in my heart.
The free concert gifted to wildfire survivors and first responders. Amongst the crowd of about 17,000 at the Hollywood Bowl, friends Helen and Marcia, longtime Altadena residents.
What does tonight mean to you, and what does it signify for your community of Altadena?
Takes our mind off things. You get to come to the Hollywood Bowl and enjoy a wonderful concert. People have been very generous. They've been very kind and thoughtful. So it's been a wonderful experience to see the kindness of people.
I know a lot of people think this is over, but it's not. This is just, the beginning. Like Helen said, it's a chance to and just kind of relax and not think about it. Because as soon as we leave here and get in your cars, you're right back in it.
It is one more night where we don't have to worry.
Also in attendance, Chin Yu, his wife Kim, and their two sons, Atticus and Hudson.
We've been coming here for a long time, and this is really a surreal evening.
Their first concert together as a family since the wildfire.
I always get inspired because I love this music and I love this place. And I hope the same goes for so many people out here tonight.
The Yu family, like so many others, sifting through the rubble, grasping onto their own glimmers of hope.
Altadenans are strong. We stick together, we pull together, we work together as a community, so I know we're going to be rebuilding and we're going to be great.
There's nothing that gives more hope than seeing a cleared lot free of debris. And I'm waiting for that moment to see what awaits us in our next stage.
Happy family, seeing your children laughing, smiling.
As long as the children are happy, we can do anything.
On this night out, the performers hoping music can begin to heal the pain of the wildfire survivors.
Music can always bring some sort of healing. Our thanks to Melissa. Coming up, an American tourist arrested after allegedly trying to contact the world's most isolated tribe. Why he went and what he tried to give them. Plus, Table for One, why Americans are increasingly dining alone and why it's happening more since the pandemic. We'll investigate by the numbers. A growing number of Americans are opting for a party of one when it comes to dining out. And with solo reservations on the rise, we take a look at the trend tonight by the numbers. There's been a 64% spike in solo dinner reservations over the past 5+ years, and that's according to Open Table. The restaurant reservation site reported last year that over 60% of Americans chose to dine solo, mainly when traveling alone. That statistic went up with age. 69% of baby boomers saying they don't mind cozying up to the bar alone versus 55% of Gen Zers. So what's fueling the trend? A resurgence of business travel post-pandemic for one. A Deloitte study found 77% of business travelers took 1 to 5 trips in 2023. More people are also living alone. Census data from last year shows 29% are single-person households. Open Table found 48% of people surveyed last year still have anxiety about eating out alone, with feelings of loneliness being their biggest barrier. So maybe one still is the loneliest number. For some, I guess it depends on who you ask. Coming up, Drake finally gets a win over Kendrick Lamar in his Not Like Us lawsuit, but it might not last. Plus, 4 space tourists splashed down after taking a trip no human has before. Details coming up next in the rundown. A warning flag from the IRS. A tourist in India makes a really bad decision, and the yellow brick road heads to Las Vegas. Those stories and more in tonight's rundown.
An emotional reunion for two brothers. Jose Gregorio Gonzalez, who was detained by ICE earlier this month, was released from custody but remains under supervision after community advocates and officials appealed for his release so he can resume the kidney donation process in hopes of saving his brother's life. Gonzalez is a native of Venezuela and has failed to pass the credible fear screening, which did not allow him to apply for asylum like his brother. The brothers said one of the first things they're going to do is call their mother so she can see them together. A 24-year-old American tourist has been arrested after allegedly traveling to a remote restricted island near India and trying to contact one of the world's most isolated tribes. Officials said it appears he failed to make contact and left them a can of Coke and a coconut on the beach. In 2018, a missionary trying to meet the tribe was shot and killed with an arrow. Fewer Americans have filed their federal taxes and more have requested extensions at this point in the filing season compared to last year. The IRS is saying they've received nearly 1 million fewer tax filings this season compared to 2024. And while the drops in filing aren't unusual, they do come amid DOJ's cuts to the tax agency. The deadline to file taxes or ask for an extension is April 15th. 4 space tourists who orbited the North and South Poles returned to Earth.
Welcome home from 2. We have confirmation of
splashing down in the Pacific to end their privately funded polar tour. Bitcoin investor Chun Wang chartered a SpaceX flight for himself and 3 others in a Dragon capsule that was outfitted with a domed window that provided 360-degree views of the polar caps and everything in between. Wang declined to say how much he paid for the 3.5-day trip. Slim Shady is a grandpa. Rapper Eminem's daughter, Haley Jade, posted a photo on Instagram announcing the birth of her son. His middle name is the same as his grandfather's, Marshall. In October, Eminem announced that Haley was pregnant through his music video, Temporary.
And in time, I'll be fine. The tears are temporary.
And there's no place like Las Vegas. This summer, the Sphere in Sin City will transform into Oz when it presents the 1939 classic, The Wizard of Oz, as an immersive movie experience. The Sphere says they'll use cutting-edge technologies to enhance the film on their 160,000-square-foot curved screen. The movie will premiere at the venue this summer, August 28th.
Drake and Kendrick Lamar's rap war remains red hot after Drake was granted the right to request sensitive documents in his defamation case involving Lamar's song Not Like Us. Drake is suing Universal Music Group, claiming the company allowed Lamar's song to be published and promoted while it spread a, quote, false and malicious narrative that Drake is a pedophile. ABC News contributor Mike Muse joins us now here in studio. And Mike, this is a very consequential case. Yeah. Universal Music Group has been fighting this request. So they're talking about these sensitive documents. What are they talking about? What are the sensitive documents?
The key word you said in your statement, your question was publishing and promoting. Lean into promoting. So what they're going to look is for discovery evidence that's going to suggest, was Universal Music Group in coordination with Spotify, with Tidal, with Apple Music, or whatever other streaming services that listeners use to figure out, was there a coordinated effort in order to promote this song with a tipping of the scale? Also, they're going to be looking at, is there any email communication or any evidence that can link any radio promotions group or team members to radio stations across the country to use to encourage more promotion over others?
I'm sure you've heard this question before, but people ask, why is Drake suing the music company and not Kendrick Lamar himself?
Woo! That's a hot take, Stephanie. I didn't know you were coming again so hot today. That's a question all of us want to know, which is why I tend to wonder, is this more of a performative dynamic? Is Drake looking for something else with Universal Music Group? Is he looking to get out of a contract? Is he looking for a big payday? Is he looking to use that big payday to get out of the contract so he can just be solely underneath his own record label and cut out the major and the distribution aspect of it? Because if it is really about hurt and impact and defamatory, he would have went directly at Kendrick. Here's my thing, Stephanie. This is unusual, not just for label mates, but also too in hip hop. In hip hop, you don't settle beefs in the courtroom. The fundamentals of beef is the fundamentals of hip hop. It is what makes a genre so unique and so special.
Well, it's 2025, so now we go to the courtroom. Back in the 90s, I know exactly what you're saying. That beef was just handled through the music.
It was, yeah.
Somebody would put out their hit and then another hit and go back and forth. So, I mean, I'm sure you've heard the music, you've heard the song, you've heard the album. Many say that the lyrics in the song, in this specific song, are quite inflammatory. So, do we have any idea yet what Universal Music Group's defense will be?
Yeah, I mean, you have all the questions today.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, what I'm leading into is the Universal Music Group's attorney. There's a particular line that they focus on and said that the line that Drake is referencing is what they call rhetorical hyperbole. And what they're saying is that it is freedom of speech and that it isn't directly saying that it is. Now, that's to be determined whether or not that's true or not, but they are standing their grounds on this rhetorical hyperbole, which is allowed underneath the First Amendment. And so the question now gets into where we are in a political space, right? Freedom of speech versus content moderation, right? Like, are we uncomfortable with the content of the speech? And if that's the case, that is still someone's right to freedom of speech. You may not like what they're saying, right? But that still gives them the right to say it. My concern is if this case is allowed to go forward, and if this case rules in the favor of Drake, does that set a precedent, right? That chills other freedom of artistry and creative artistry from other artists wanting to engage in this style of beef, right? Or this style of satire, right? Does it change how they think about the construct of music? And Stephanie, not just in hip hop, but in pop as well. So all genres can be affected by if a precedent is set in this case around freedom of speech versus the content of the speech.
It'll be interesting to see how this is all settled. We will be watching. We will bring you back to talk about it.
Let's go. Let's keep talking. Because we got
you.
all the questions.
Yes, thanks for
Stephanie
coming
came in hot, America.
Appreciate you. The head of AMC Theaters says he's gaining support in his effort to keep movies exclusively in theaters for longer. CEO Adam Aron is pushing studios to extend the current 17 to 30-day release window to 45 days, saying the change is critical for the entertainment industry. He says at least 3 of the 6 major studios agree with his plan, and data shows that when movies are in theaters for a shorter period of time, a significant chunk of the population stays at home and waits for it on TV or streaming. Turning the chapter and taking her story into her own hands. Nearly a decade after Grace VanderWaal first captured hearts as a 12-year-old winner of America's Got Talent, and 9 years after her successful debut EP, Imperfectly Perfect, which was the best-selling EP of 2016, by the way, the multi-talented singer-songwriter and actress is sharing the difficult journey of growing up in the limelight and the process of shedding that image for her new self in her concept album, Child Star. Let's take a listen to her new song, Proud.
Around the edge like cellophane. Did I make you proud? Did I take your breath away? Did I make you proud? 'Cause baby, I'm so special.
Yeah. Hey. Keep singing, girl. Live in studio is Grace VanderWaal and blessing us with her voice live and in person. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Queen.
Absolutely. I love your energy. Can we keep her for the entire show?
So happy to be here.
Child Star explores your experience growing up in the spotlight, but it also addresses the pressure many women face to grow up before they're ready. So were you ever hesitant to share your personal story and just be so open about this topic?
No.
You were ready.
I think that it felt weird for me to keep this one part of this one side of myself uncovered because I lived such a public life. So it felt strange. Like, why does everyone know everything about me except this like one weird burden of like maybe the bad experience? Why would I not also publicize that?
You tap into those moments, 12-year-old Grace or just Grace from the last few years to kind of incorporate her into your writing process. How does that help you now, that experience?
I think, honestly, I feel like it's when I'm, like, most authentic. That's, like, kind of corny to say, but, yeah, you don't really need to, like, tap into anything. It's more like taking something away, you know?
Did other artists influence you at all in the last few years?
Here we go. We got it right here on the teleprompter. Bjork, Fiona Apple. Those are like huge writing inspirations. I'm a big lyrics girl, so I just really wanted the words to be really, detailed and in depth and vulnerable, and yeah.
So we saw a little clip there of your video, and that's still Proud, right?
Yeah.
That's the song Proud. So you're also out with a live performance piece of Child Star.
Yeah,
so
it's like
talk
a
to us
play.
about that. It's like a play.
Yes.
It's well choreographed.
Yes.
So explain that to us.
So I had this idea when I made this album to present it like a play throughout each song, and then have like interpretive dance telling the story of the interludes between each song. To get people to buy into this, honey, was the craziest thing I've ever done. I was literally like in
So how'd you do
label.
it?
I was in label offices just rolling on the carpet, being like, and then this is what's gonna happen, and will you finance it? Do you want to be a part of it?
Able to see on your tour, right? On Child
Yeah.
Star, the tour that kicks off on May 4th, which is
Yeah.
hitting Chicago, New York, LA, just to name a few cities. So what, other than that choreographed play style piece, what else can folks expect?
Well, I want the tour, that's like a part of my whole idea for this. Like, I want the tour to feel like a show that's going on the road.
You're coming off of a huge 2024. You starred in Megalopolis from legendary filmmaker Francis Ford Coppola. And you've been open about your growth as an artist. So how do you see yourself evolving over the next few years?
I just want to be able to keep making music. I think that like people don't talk about the surreal privilege it is enough that I am literally making music as a full-time living. Not many people can say that.
Well, congratulations on all your success. It's great to meet you, Grace.
Thank you.
You can listen to Grace's new album, Child Star, which is out today anywhere you stream your music.
Listen to it.
Yes, and I love that album cover too.
Thank
It's
you.
really neat. Golden Star, because you're the star. That is our show for this hour. I'm Stephanie Ramos. Stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us.